Before the trophies, before the records, and before an entire stadium sang his name, Mohamed Salah was a 14-year-old boy chasing a bus, then another bus, then another. 5 days a week he left his small Egyptian village of Nagreg and traveled for hours to reach training in Cairo. Some days the round trip took almost 9 hours. He would arrive at school at 7 in the morning, leave after only 2 hours, and begin the exhausting journey to the Arab contractor's training ground. 9 hours of travel for a training session that might last less than 2. Most people would call that impossible. Salah called it Tuesday. Years later, millions would know the beard, the number 11 shirt, the lightning acceleration, and that famous left foot. But the most important part of Mohamed Salah's story is not how quickly he runs. It is how many times he refused to stop. And if you think his rise to the top was smooth, wait until you hear how close English football came to writing him off completely. Salah grew up far from the giant stadiums of Europe. There were no private jets, no luxury training camps, and no guarantee that football would become anything more than a dream. There was only a ball, a family willing to sacrifice, and a teenager prepared to spend more time traveling to training than most professionals spend training. At Arab contractors, coaches began to see what the long journeys were building. Salah was raw, but he was fearless. He was small, explosive, direct, and almost impossible to catch once he found open grass. He broke into the senior team and attracted attention from Europe. In 2012, Swiss club Basel offered him the doorway he had been chasing. But moving to Europe created a new problem. He had to adapt to a different country, a different culture, a different climate, and a new level of football. Talent had opened the door. Now discipline had to keep him inside. At Basel, Salah began turning curiosity into belief. In European competition, he repeatedly caused Chelsea problems, even scoring at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea had seen enough. In January 2014, one of England's biggest clubs signed the young Egyptian. Instead, it nearly became the moment the dream disappeared. Salah struggled for regular minutes at Chelsea. He was surrounded by established stars, competing in a system that demanded immediate results. He appeared, vanished to the bench, and eventually left England on loan. To casual observers, the verdict seemed obvious. Fast player, interesting talent, but not good enough for the Premier League. He failed in England, but Salah did not accept that sentence as the ending. He treated it like an editing mistake. In Italy, first with Fiorentina and then with Roma, he rebuilt himself. He learned when to sprint and when to wait. He improved his movement, his strength, and his decisions in the final third. He stopped being only a dangerous winger and became a ruthless scorer. At Roma, the numbers climbed, the confidence returned, and the player Chelsea had overlooked began to look ready for England again. Then Liverpool called. When Salah arrived at Anfield in 2017, plenty of people remembered the Chelsea version. They wondered whether Liverpool had paid too much. They questioned whether he could handle the physical pressure of the Premier League. They saw a player returning to the scene of his rejection. Salah saw a second chance. What followed was not a comeback, it was an explosion. In his first Liverpool season, Salah scored 44 goals in all competitions. 44, he attacked from the right, cut onto his left foot, and kept producing the same terrifying picture for defenders. One quick touch, a burst into space, and the ball bending toward the far corner. Everyone knew what he wanted to do. Almost nobody could stop him. He scored 32 league goals that season, setting a new record for a 38-game Premier League campaign at the time. He won the Golden Boot. He won the PFA Players Player of the Year award. A footballer once dismissed as a Premier League failure had returned and dominated the league, but the season ended with pain. In the 2018 Champions League final, Salah suffered a shoulder injury and left the pitch in tears. Liverpool lost. Egypt's biggest star was suddenly racing to recover before the World Cup. The image was unforgettable, the unstoppable forward walking away from the biggest game of his life, unable to continue. For some players, that kind of moment leaves a scar they spend a career avoiding. Salah came back to face it. 1 year later, Liverpool reached the Champions League final again. This time, Salah stood over an early penalty against Tottenham. The pressure was enormous. He struck it, scored, and Liverpool went on to become champions of Europe. The tears had changed. Then came the trophy Liverpool supporters had waited 3 decades to see. In the 2019-20 season, Liverpool became champions of England. Salah was central to the team that turned years of hope into certainty. Together with Sadio Mane and Roberto Firmino, he formed one of football's most feared attacks. They did not simply score goals, they overwhelmed opponents. He scored tap-ins and penalties, he scored from impossible angles, he scored after sprinting half the pitch, he scored while surrounded by defenders who knew exactly which foot he preferred. He created goals too, evolving from a devastating finisher into a complete attacking force. In 2024-25, deep into his Liverpool career, he delivered one of his finest league seasons, 29 goals and 18 assists. That was 47 goal involvements in 38 matches, a Premier League record for a single player in a 38-game campaign. Liverpool won another league title and Salah collected a fourth Golden Boot, matching Thierry Henry's record. Think about the full circle. The player once judged not good enough for England became one of the greatest players English football has ever seen. Across 9 Liverpool seasons, Salah scored 257 goals in 442 appearances. Only Ian Rush and Roger Hunt finished with more goals for the club. He became Liverpool's leading Premier League scorer, helped win 2 league titles and the Champions League, and collected a cabinet full of team and individual honours. But Salah's meaning cannot be measured only in goals. On October 8, 2017, Egypt faced Congo with a place at the World Cup on the line. Egypt had not reached the tournament for 28 years. Salah scored, Congo equalized late, and then Egypt received a penalty in stoppage time. Imagine the weight of that walk, tens of millions hoping, a nation holding its breath, one kick between Egypt and a dream that had waited nearly 3 decades. Salah placed the ball, he stepped back, he ran forward and scored. The stadium erupted, people cried in the stands and celebrated across the country. In that instant, Salah was more than a footballer. He became the face of possibility. That is why his influence reaches far beyond Liverpool. For children in Egypt, across Africa, and throughout the Arab world, Salah changed what a global superstar could look and sound like. He carried his name, his faith, and his identity onto football's biggest stages without turning them into a performance. He made excellence feel closer to millions who had rarely seen themselves at the center of the sport's biggest stories. And he never forgot Nagreg. As his fame grew, Salah supported projects in and around his home community, including education, medical services, and help for families in need. The boy who spent years leaving his village to chase an opportunity returned with opportunities for others. That may be the clearest picture of who he is. On the pitch, he creates space for himself. Off the pitch, he creates space for other people to dream, not with one magical tournament, not with one lucky season, not with hype, with repetition, train, travel, improve, score, recover, repeat. That is the hidden lesson in Mohamed Salah's story. We celebrate the moments that take seconds, the sprint, the finish, the trophy lift, but greatness is usually built in the hours nobody sees. It is built on the bus before sunrise, on the training ground after disappointment, in the gym when success has already made comfort available. Salah's career asks a difficult question. What if your rejection is not proof that you are incapable? What if it is information? What if the door that closed is showing you what must be improved before the next one opens? Chelsea was not the end of Mohamed Salah. The injury in the Champions League final was not the end. Every defeat, every criticism, and every doubt became another stop on the journey. And that is why the nickname Egyptian King means more than goals. A crown can be given, but his was built from sacrifice, resilience, discipline, and the courage to return to a league that had already rejected him. So the next time you watch Mohamed Salah cut in from the right and guide the ball toward the far corner, do not see only the finish. See the child leaving school early. See the endless buses. See the young man sitting on Chelsea's bench while strangers decide his future. See the player rebuilding himself in Italy. See the penalty for Egypt, the tears in Kiev, the redemption in Madrid, the titles at Anfield, and the millions of children who now believe their starting point does not have to decide their destination. Mohamed Salah did not become a legend because his road was easy. He became a legend because no matter how long the road became, he kept moving. And maybe that is the real reason the world still sings his name. If this story changed the way you see Mohamed Salah, share it with someone who needs a reminder that rejection is not the end. And tell me in the comments, where does the Egyptian king rank among the greatest Premier League players of all time?